Hi, this is Cindy Fuhrer, and we're here today to talk about how to complete your empirical formula lab write-up or your magnesium oxide lab. The first thing we want to look at is look at our data table and to make sure that you have all the numbers filled out correctly. The first mass we took was the mass of the dry crucible, which my mass is 57.46 grams. That should not be your mass, that's just my mass I took in a lab. Then I gave you a piece of magnesium, which you put into the crucible and weighed it again. My mass was 57.88 grams. We can subtract these two numbers to get the mass of magnesium. My mass of magnesium was 0.42 grams. All right, next we burnt the magnesium in the air, the bright light. After we were done, we let it cool and added some water to get rid of the contaminants and heated it up again to remove all the water. After it cooled, we made another mass measurement, which is 58.16. We actually did not get around to doing the second and third massing and heating, which hopefully would have been equal to the 5.16. For the mass of the magnesium, this here needs to be corrected. It's actually C minus A. So our mass of our magnesium oxide minus the mass of the crucible. And if we subtract these two numbers, we get 0.7 grams. The last one blank is the mass of our oxygen. If we take magnesium oxide minus magnesium, so 0.7 minus 0.42, we get the mass of just the oxygen, which would be 0.28 grams. Okay, now we're ready to go to complete. Okay, so now that we're ready to do our lab write-up, we want to write our objective. Our objective should be a complete sentence, and it should start with the objective of this lab is to. We're not going to do our hypothesis this time because we should have wrote that before we actually completed the lab. Materials procedure, we're just going to refer to, since we didn't write out the lab or do pictures before lab, and we just need to change the date here to this current year. All right, then you'll insert your data table, and the next thing we need to do is our calculations. We need to be able to find the moles of the magnesium reacted, the moles of the oxygen reacted, the ratio of the magnesium to oxide, and then percent of magnesium and percent of oxygen. All right, so in our lab write-up, remember we want to label all of our calculations. So the first thing we're going to do is put calculations. And then we're going to put number 1, moles of magnesium. Then we're going to take our data from our data table, the mass of magnesium, and simply convert it to moles using the molar mass off the periodic table. Okay, second, we want to find the moles of oxygen. Okay, to find the moles of oxygen, we take the grams of oxygen and we convert it to moles using the molar mass of oxygen. Okay, the next step is to take a ratio of the moles of magnesium to oxygen. You want to put the smallest one on the bottom. As an experiment, our ratios might not come out quite as nice as normal. I was very careful with my lab, so my ratio is very nice. But if your ratio is off, you may have to do a little bit more rounding than you do in the actual problems that are given to you on the worksheets. Okay, so I'm going to put the moles of magnesium on top because it's my largest one, and put my moles of oxygen on the bottom. Now yours may be flipped from that, just you want to have the smallest one on the bottom. Obviously when we divide this out, we get a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning that we have 1 magnesium for every 1 oxygen, so we can write our formula as magnesium oxide. Okay, our fourth calculation is the percent is the percent of magnesium. Okay, so for the percent of magnesium, we're going to take the grams of magnesium over the grams of magnesium oxide and multiply it by 100. Well, we want to put the equation in there before we actually put the numbers in there. So now we're ready to put the numbers in. So for the percent of magnesium for my data, I have the mass of magnesium, which is 0.42 grams, over the mass of the magnesium oxide, which is 0.7 grams, times 100, which is equal to 60%. And we want to keep sig figs the same, so 2 sig figs, so 60 point. Okay, and then the fifth calculation is the percent of oxygen. Oops, let me make that look just a little bit better there. Percent of oxygen, which you want to put the formula in there. So the percent of oxygen is equal to the mass of oxygen over the grams of magnesium oxide times 100. So our percent of oxygen is equal to 0.28 divided by 0.7 times 100. Another way to do it, of course, is to subtract the percent of magnesium minus 100, or 100 minus it, because we know that there's always 100% in the whole thing. So we get 40% of it is oxygen. And the two together adding up to be 100, which of course is the entire reaction that we want to see. Now we're ready to write up, so we want to look back at what we need to do here. We've done all the calculations, so we now need to write our results. To write our results, we want to answer these questions in full, complete sentences, no using pronouns. And don't give any what did you do wrong or what was the error, just simply answer the questions. Then finally, we want to have our conclusion here, and under our conclusion, answer each one of the questions in great detail. Remember, in paragraph form, not by numbering, and make sure you use proper grammar, no pronouns, and to make sure each paragraph has at least 3 to 4 sentences in them, so they're all very well written. All right, so the lab write-up is worth 35 points, and it is due next Tuesday, February 3rd.